Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast. And with the lads sitting in 7th in the Premier League with the second best defensive record in the top flight, with almost a quarter of the season behind us, we sit level on points with the two sides above us. So we're going to say technically we are joint 5th. But both of the teams who have above us have played in action in the Champions League in midweek, which is especially significant when one of them is Chelsea, because we travel to Stamford Bridge later today, of course, in what we will call a clash of the sides currently chasing European qualification places, just because we can. But it is a tough test ahead for the lads, and I have two gentlemen with me today to help me talk all about it. First up, we have Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, morning. That sounds good, that introduction. We're in a good place at the moment. It's nice to hear.
It's not bad, is it? 7th in the Premier League, but I mean, you know, I don't know whether you listen to it, Andrew, but our record at Stamford Bridge, I think we lose 4 in 6. We've lost 40 in 62 games there.
But when we do win, it's good. You know, the Chelsea 3-0 with Anua scoring. The whole Altidore winning a penalty for us and Mourinho going his end. So, you know, I think it's time for another famous Sunderland win at Stamford Bridge.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think we've lost the last 6 or 7 there, so I think we're due one. And it was interesting, actually. We talked to Simon Johnson in midweek from The Athletic, Chelsea reporter, and he said he interviewed Azpilicueta about a week after that penalty decision with Altidore, and he said the Chelsea media team, like, he basically had to give him a favour to not print what Azpilicueta said about the referee that day. So I think he got away with one then. But of course, next up we have Bomber. Hello, Bomber.
Good morning, Mr. Wynn. Good morning, Andrew. How are you? All okay?
I'm good. Travelling to Stamford Bridge. I'm not sure I dare ask this one, because I asked this one with Wolves, and you were like, "Oh no, I can't remember anything." But there's been some big games over down at Chelsea over the years that actually, talking about, we've taken some absolute batterings there, 7-2 and all that sort of stuff. But as Andrew says, it's like winning the cup when we win one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought when you mentioned the Wolves, I thought you were going to ask me about my memories of games at Stamford Bridge, and the first thing that came to mind was the 7-2 defeat, and the second one that came to mind was the 5-1 defeat. So, yeah, so I can at least remember some of those games, albeit not for the right reasons. But it's feast or famine, isn't it, with Chelsea? We seem to either get battered or give them a real good go and actually come away with an unexpected result. It doesn't seem there's not too many kind of 1-0 losses or 2-1 losses. There's a couple spread in there, but it tends to be all or nothing, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, hopefully we're due one, but we'll get round to the game because we'll cover some of the things that came out of the manager's press conference during the week. And first up, Andrew, it was a bit of a left field one because I think, and going from memory, I think it was Andy Sixsmith, who we've talked to on the pod, came out with a question just talking about Jermaine Defoe's visit. Now, I haven't actually seen the YouTube video that went out, but I know Jermaine Defoe was at the Academy of Light and had a talk with the manager, but he was asked about that. He had a bit of a wry smile on his face. He said it was a short chat, but it was interesting. Because I think the question was, what did you get out of that conversation and everything like that? But he did say after that, he said, a legacy is important in England, and it was quite an interesting comment that you do wonder with kind of how much emphasis we put on the history of the club, and especially with how the club seems to be educating its players and its new staff about the history of the club and what we're all about. I thought that was quite an interesting thing that's what he took from talking to Jermaine Defoe.
Yes, it is quite. I think there's probably something else happening behind the scenes based on what he said there. Defoe recently attended. I think Defoe attended. There was a big event over in America recently, wasn't there? Some sort of international Premier
Kevin
League.
Phillips, I think, was there as well.
Yes, yeah. Phillips as well. He's done a few bits of fan engagement recently. I mean, Lebris is he's as dry as sticks. He could have spent the whole weekend with Defoe. They could have been partying in Ayia Napa or something, and he would just say, "Yeah, we had a brief conversation." So you're not going to get too much. You're not going to get too much out of him. But Defoe is still a popular figure up here. He is in the public eye. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was something happening and Defoe was going to get a bit more of a formal position. There's another thing Defoe did recently. I'm sure he was involved in a talking at the Stadium of Light as part of Founders Week. So he's Sunderland obviously means a lot to him still, and there might be room for a more formal connection. I mean, hey, he's got his coaching badges as well, hasn't he? we might see Defoe on the touchline in a couple of weeks' time, giving Isidore a few tips.
2 minutes in, and Andrew's already used the word connection.
Yep, Register Brief theme during press conferences, and hopefully we'll see Wilson Isidore volley one in against the Mags from 40 yards out or something like that on the full volley. But Bomber, I mean, it is interesting, because we've got this thing with Defoe, and like I said, I haven't seen, I've heard about it. It's supposed to be absolutely fantastic on YouTube that the club have put out with Jermaine Defoe going around the academy. But, with the Jermaine Defoe angle, you've had Founders Week, as Andrew's just said, retro tracksuits, running out the Z cars against Wolves. But it's one of the tools that the club's using, isn't it, to kind of get everyone to buy into it, that it's kind of buying into not just what's going on now, but it's saying we're doing what we're doing now because the club we are big because of this history.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just another thing that the club are getting right in terms of that fan engagement. There's people of a certain generation that only knows or finds their nostalgia over 90s football and 2000s football. So all the retro stuff really hits home and resonates. And I think in society and in culture, there's a general clamour these days for retro stuff, whether it's games consoles or football shirts. There seems to be a move in society towards clambering after that, and the club have got on top of it and they've got ahead of it, and it's another piece of fan engagement, I think, and it just speaks into some of the things that we were saying on previous weeks about each home game being an event, and they did ever so well in doing the same against Wolves. We saw that, like I said, the retro scoreboard, which coincided with the release of the retro kits and the retro training stuff, which then they also pushed out and touched on everybody's heartstrings, I think, pushed out the retro Panini stickers. So yeah, they're just doing everything that they can to bring a feel-good factor to the fans in particular, which obviously they reap the rewards of that by having engaged, supportive, happy fans in the stadium alike, which in turn leads to hopefully to better performances and continued excellent results. So that they're getting all right at the minute. And Jermaine Defoe, if they choose to use him as a poster boy for that, some of the best times in recent times anyway, or some of the most memorable times have been with Jermaine Defoe up front for us. So yeah, they've done a really good turn there.
Do we assume David Bruce is behind all of this? Because David Bruce has got the perfect CV in that he understands marketing, and like Bomber says, he understands making match days an event. But he's also a Sunderland fan, so he knows which players are going to hit the mark. And this might all be because he's got an autograph book he wants filling. So, he's I've never met Kevin Phillips. Well, I'll get him down to the ground. I've never met Jermaine Defoe. I've got this shirt I wanted to sign. Oh, while you're here, Jermaine, you couldn't give us a couple of autographs, could you? He seems to have really tapped in to just to creating a buzz and connecting with the fans.
Well, he's in a perfect position, like you said. He's a little bit older than us. So, and he's a marketing person who's been at the very top in the States. So, I mean, if there's anywhere to learn marketing, that's the place in the world to learn it. But as being a Sunderland fan, he's come back and said, right, well, actually, I'm kind of that generation. What would I want to wear? What do I want to see in the club shop? And I'm going to get it because I know how to do that. And it's just that perfect combination, is it? Because he's putting in the shops exactly what we want to buy because he'd want to buy it. So it's just a kind of the perfect job for him. But and we'll just and I'll just point everyone in the direction this week as well. There's we interviewed Bill Hearn, author of Got Not Got, which is a nostalgic look at some of the things down the years from Sunderland AFC, including Subbuteo Panini as well, Pro Sets cards, and chewing gum cards, cigarette cards, and all that sort of stuff. So have a look out for that. But let's get into more of the game news that came out of the press conference, and Bomber will come on to the starting 11 in a bit and what we think he'll do. But of course, the first question was about who's fit and everything like that, and of course, it came out Alderete isn't going to be fit, and actually, it might be tight for the Everton game. And we'll come on to potential options further down the line, how we think he'll do a bit of a reshuffle, but that consistency at the back. I mean, as soon as he came in, he kind of made that position his own. Actually, he's been impressive going forward as well. He's got 1 or 2 assists. He scored a goal, of course, at Nottingham Forest. And he's been almost a bit of a linchpin there at the back, and he's been fantastic. Is that going to be a blow that kind of rocks us a bit?
I mean, my initial reaction to the news was yes. And, particularly going to Stamford Bridge, where the chances are we're going to be playing a style of football and adopting a strategy that's going to need to be defensively sound and accepting that we'll probably give away 70% of the ball and be backs to the wall for long periods of the game. And he's the perfect person to implement that strategy. I mean, I'm loath to say he's probably been our best player this season, because you can make a case for probably about 5 or 6. It's an impossible debate to have, but I think just in terms of the impact that he's had, I think he's certainly the player that's come in and had the most impact, or at least the most unexpected impact. He was given his chance by chance because of injury, and we were all kind of, when he came in, we were all kind of holding our breath, not quite sure what we were going to see. And it looks like we've seen a seasoned pro who's been to World Cups and Champions League finals and played for the club for 6 or 7 years. It was pretty seamless. And a lot of the good stuff that we've done in keeping our clean sheets has been down to him. There's been goal line blocks and clearances that he's also done. Let's not just concentrate on the stuff that he's done going forward offensively. Can't remember which game it was, but there was one in particular. It might have been Villa, where he stuck a knee out inside the 6-yard box and deflected it either over or wide. I can't remember, but his importance is is massive. He will be a miss. However, we've got we'll have Dan Ballard, who again you could argue has come in and got his chance and thrived and proven to the world that he is a Premier League footballer and a Premier League defender in my eyes. And also, Mukiele can fill in there as well. And we just go back to, I know we're growing into starting 11 territory now, but on the first reaction, it is a big, massive loss. And no matter who fits in or whatever back four we play, it will be a loss and he will be missed. However, isn't it refreshing for us as fans to kind of sit back and have a player who we've felt is so key to this season and be able to be a little bit more relaxed because of the amount of options and the amount of quality options we've got to potentially come in and replace. Gone are the days now where, one of our key players would be injured and we'd all give up hope of getting anything from a game. So yeah, it's a big blow, but I'm not in desperation as a result of it.
Yeah, I wondered how long it would take us to say we've got options, and there it was, Bomber. I was glad to see it, man.
We've ticked them both off now, mate. Connections, options. We only need model now, so if you could take that one, that'd be great.
That's it. So someone surely got a line by now. They're waiting for full house. But yeah, Andrew. I mean, the other thing he talked about at the back was he talked about having consistency, and he's had consistency really majority of the time when he can, other than picking up knocks at the back. And he's kind of shuffled his pack further up the pitch, I would say. He said consistency at the back is, it's important for building that confidence for everything else that happens. So it's especially important at the back. Again, will that have an impact that Alderete is out?
I think it'll have an impact whenever you lose a player of that quality. You're right. The defence has been consistent, and I tell you who I think's a lucky fella now, Ronaldo, because I know some people would have brought him back into the team, but I personally didn't see that happening. I think Lebris would have said, "Yeah, you've dropped out of the team through your own daft fault. Others have come in, done a good job. Tough luck, you'll have to wait your turn." Whereas now, Alderete being unavailable just potentially opens the door for him and gets him back into the team when that might not have happened. Because, yeah, that defence has, where possible, stayed the same. Players have come in, done their job, and deservedly kept their places. Alderete will be a miss. It will impact us, but as Bomber says, we're not now having to talk about throwing in some young kid. Whoever comes in, or whichever way they decide to flip things around, it's still going to be a back four full of international class players. It's not bad, is it?
Well, yeah, on that point, Bomber, because he was asked about how the defence have kind of helped out at the other end of the pitch. Of course, Alderete scored in the winner against Nottingham Forest, of course. Then Mukiele scoring against Wolves, and you've had Alderete putting crosses into the box where people are getting on the end of, and we've had crosses coming from how important Ronaldo was down that left hand side earlier in the season. But it just goes to show that actually, and he talked about the flexibility at the back, and we'll just go into those options again. But it just goes to show that we haven't just said, right, well, we'll buy a stopper to do that. We've bought good footballers who are who can adapt to any situation and can step into those positions. If we, people talk about centre halves having a lot of the ball. We seemingly bought good footballers who were comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, and that's an approach to that's how we've approached staying up. And I think it's, if you can afford to do so, because those better players who are, quote unquote, better footballers, so to speak, come with a much higher price tag than your old school kick it and head it, physical defenders, which I don't think works in the Premier League these days because strikers are so big and so strong. Back in the early 2000s, in the 90s, you could have your Tony Adamses and your Martin Keowns who would literally just put bodies on the line and didn't care. Even more recently to the John Terrys, I guess, and Vidic's, but attacking players are stronger, bigger, faster now. So you need to be able to, and with the opposition teams and many teams now adopting such a high press, you need to have footballers in all positions, and even the goalkeeper. You know, we've seen in the last couple of, or certainly the last decade, the emergence of needing a keeper. All the top teams need a keeper who can play football, and there's no difference at the back. So it would have been easy to do what other teams have done in the past and just get players in with Premier League experience who've played in the Premier League at centre back, and they're quite strong and they're no nonsense. We've adopted a slightly different approach, and we're reaping the rewards for it. At both ends of the pitch, like you said, like I was just looking at our top goal scorers for this season now. So if you take Wilson Isidore out of it, who's got 3, we've scored 5 goals, and 3 of those have been from defenders. So don't forget Ballard scored as well. So we got Ballard, Mukiele, and Alderete are effectively joint second top goal scorers for us, with Lefay and Mayenda in there as well. So the more they can help out, we've say it for years, that the more you can spread the goals around, regardless of whether it's in defence or in midfield, the more pressure it takes off of the Isidores, the Lefays, the Mayendas, the Adingras, because they will score, and they're showing that they're scoring, but it might not necessarily be enough to win matches and to win points. So if the centre midfielders and the defenders can chip in as well, it just makes our life in terms of Premier League survival that much more easy. So yeah, it's crucial. It is crucial that we got players in that can do that, like I said, rather than just concentrate on keeping players out. Because once you adopt that strategy of let's just try and go through every game and not concede, it's inevitable that you'll concede. And then if you haven't got the things, the abilities and the attributes going forward, you just lose football matches 1 and 2-0. And we're not doing that. So I think if any success that we've got this season, I think will by and large be down to that back four, the combination of the back four and those holding midfielders, and their contributions going forward and in defence.
Well, Matt, I'm loving the points you're making. Same as Chris with the introduction. It's great just sitting here, hearing it come from other people, what a great position we're in. You mentioned there, though, price tags and how certain players might cost more because obviously the more cultured centre-backs are going to be a bit more expensive. For us, we've picked them up for an absolute steal. You've got Roofs was about 10 million. Mukiele, Alderete, they're not bargain basement, but if you add together their transfer fees, it would probably still be half some of the prices Chelsea have lashed out.
That'd be half a Mark Gahey, wouldn't it, basically?
But it would, or half for Chelsea's point of view, half some absolute unheard of kid who's been bought and is just a squad fella who might be on the bench on Saturday,
and it's just been shipped out to Royal Antwerp or somewhere like that and not played in the Premier League.
Yeah, so it's not how much you spend, it's how you spend it, and this is all feeding into all of our conversations, and meaning that despite the fact a few months ago we were losing it away at Oxford United, we're all now thinking, yeah, we might have a chance of a result this afternoon. It's it's some turnaround.
Yep, and on that point of how brilliant Sunderland are, I think that's a good point for us to have a little break. We'll be back after these.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast. And we were just talking about how brilliant we are in defence, Andrew, but and of course getting the bargains. But one of the things that was mentioned in terms of the defence having all this confidence, and this was put to Regis Labrie in the press conference, he did bring up again that how fragile that experience is. And he mentioned that the period at Manchester United, where he said that was a tough 20 minutes, half an hour. And he said we can always get punished. But I think he's brought this up a couple of times since the Manchester United game, that specific 20-minute, half an hour period. I think he got so much out of that period where he realised we need a plan for those times when that happens, when we're under the cosh against teams like Manchester United, because suddenly, a few minutes later, a couple of brilliant flashes of play by their top-class players were 2-0 down or something.
Well, that's it. And as always in the Premier League, we are up against quality players. So sometimes it's hard to negate that. But when have we ever seen a Sunderland team under Labrie consistently make the exact same mistakes? I don't think we do. If something goes wrong, like that spell against Manchester United, he picks up on it. And for a flying fact, if he's mentioned it a couple of times in press conferences, he's mentioned it a whole lot more behind the scenes and come up with solutions around it. So there will be games this season where we're not quite at it. That's bound to happen. And we can all be comfortable that he's on it, and between him and his coaches, dealing with it. Famous last words, of course, if Chelsea have us penned in for 20-odd minutes. But I think at the moment we're still a young squad in terms of Premier League experience, and it will take time to tighten up one or two areas, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I find it reassuring that he talks about that period and that he's learning from that. But Bomber, I think Andrew mentioned talking about the bargains, Michele and Roofs especially, and this specific point came up in the press conference, and I can't remember, it might have been Keith Downey, who just asked him about Michele and just said, how did you find this player for so much? How was he not picked up by one of the top teams? And the question's been put to him about Roofs, and it seems like Roofs and Michele come up constantly in press conferences just saying, where did you pluck these from? But is there an element that if we keep doing this week after week, that's adding a bit of pressure to them in terms of elevating them a bit?
Yeah, it does, but they are professionals. You mean pressure on the individuals?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they are professionals, professional footballers. It's what they aspire to be. They'd have started their journey as professional footballers, hoping to reach those heights and hoping to have headlines on Sky Sports News and having reporters and journalists talking about them in such high praise. I'm sure that such is the depth of our data and our recruitment strategy, that their ability and their character, their mental ability to deal with pressure and to deal with stress and to deal with adversity will have been assessed just as much as their ability to play a 15-yard pass sideways, forwards and backwards. And I don't think looking at how that team is currently behind the scenes. And again, the club do great stuff in feeding that to us, to see just how together the team are and the mentality of the team. I only think it will serve to elevate them further. I don't see anyone in that team, certainly not in that starting 11, as a kind of a flaky personality who would get a bit of success and then kind of crumble under the weight of expectation. Don't see that at all. Don't see that for anybody, let alone Roos and Mukiele. The keeper in particular, you look at him between the sticks, and he just exudes confidence from the very first game he came in. He's another one similar to Alderete. We were saying earlier that it looked like he'd been a seasoned Sunderland player and been there for 6 or 7 years. Roos is exactly the same. I've not seen him make one mistake. There was bar the goal. Can't remember who it was against.
Villa.
The Villa goal, which you can make mitigations for. If we're being honest, it looks worse than it is in terms of a goalkeeping error. I'm still not putting it down as a goalkeeping error, but I know that people did. But he's not put a foot wrong. He's done absolutely nothing wrong, and he's just stood between those goalposts with absolute confidence. And you can see that confidence has just grown and grown and grown. And I think both him and Mukiele thrive and are nourished by the positive comments and the amount of attention that they're getting. And it serves them well because it boosts their reputation. It boosts, boosts their confidence. It serves the team well because confident players are better performing players, and they radiate confidence around the rest of the team. And it's better for the football club because, realistically, if they keep on the sort of rise that they've had in the first 8 games of the season, we won't have them for more than 2 years. And they'll be gone for 5, 6, 7 times what we paid for them. So it's win all round, really, as long as they keep on that trajectory. But I don't see them, either of them, wilting under that expectation. They look too confident players.
Yeah, you just keep saying my name, Bomber. That's absolutely fine, mate. But I think it's funny with Michaela's personality. There was a comment on that. I think it was Andy Sixsmith again saying that a commentator had actually described him at the weekend as playing happy football, which is another kind of accolade he's got there. But just moving on, just talking about again, just the defenders in attack, really. The topic of long throws, Andrew, has been coming up time and time again, and it came up at the press conference because we've got our own, I want to say secret weapon, but Rory Delap was a secret weapon because nobody knew that he had a long throw. But Michaela's long throw, but he did say that, and again, I've mentioned this a few times, but Lebris talks about these scenarios in games, and he mentioned that that we have a long throw and set pieces are very important, and he classes that as a set piece. But he said, that goal against Wolves, it was good because after that long throw, players like Hume and Michaela were in unusual positions, as he described it, and they could take advantage of it.
Yeah, and they didn't at any moment panic or look like a fish out of water. It's all very well telling your defenders to get up front, but if they don't know what they're doing up there, they just end up being a nuisance more than anything else. But they are intelligent footballers, and the Wolves goal was through some really good play. There wasn't any luck to that. The players knew what they were doing as they were building that attack. You're right in that Rory Delap was such a secret weapon. Even we didn't even know.
I don't think he knew.
Yeah. So I mean, talk about keeping a secret. That was really well done. A lot of teams seem to be trying the long throw-ins at the moment. I dare say there'll be fans of similar clubs to us saying, "Oh, it's nice to see us trying to utilise that." But it has helped us create a bit of a threat. Bomber mentioned earlier, we've got 3 defenders there who've got goals already, and we're only a quarter into the season, so it is helping us. And again, none of it is by mistake. When we are signing players now, we know exactly where their strengths are, and we'll buy other players to work around that. We're joking about Delap, But come on, man. There's a footballer at the club and nobody knew about his like potentially game-winning ability. That's not going to happen now, is it? These players are so fantastically researched and bought for specific reasons. And I think teams, when they're preparing to play against Sunderland, will be looking at that and be having to come up with ways to deal with it, because it is a threat for us.
Yeah. Moving up the pitch, Bomber, there was, again, a question from Nick Barnes, and he used one of Regis Lebris's terms, actually, because he was starting to talk about the midfield, and he said the midfield, with the changes that are being made and across the season, seem a bit less connected, was the way Nick Barnes put it. And, you can see that in the middle of the park, and I think the injury to Diarra has kind of unsettled that a little bit. But yeah, the manager said it was part of the process, and he did identify, he said, especially wingers, because they've got to be good at attacking, defending, be good at the counter. They've got to be efficient in both boxes. And he did say it was demanding, and we need to support those players. And do you feel that that's almost like a long-term process with the players we've bought in those positions?
I think it is. I think it has to be, because we don't, apart from Adingra, first game of the season, I'm sure I pulled out a stat when we were previewing that opening game, and first game of the season, our squad our squad had 60 Premier League appearances between them, and they were all Simon Adingra's. So I think, particularly in the wide positions, we have bought with a view of developing. You look at Talby, you look at the players that we've existing, albeit injured at the minute, people like Mundor. The only one really who you can expect, who we should have expected to perform in the Premier League is Adingra, and he did that at the start and kind of seems to have fallen out of favour a little bit in recent times. But it is Lebris is correct in what he's saying. It's probably the most demanding position that you can have, and probably you need to be the most complete player to play there. Gone are the days of having, Ryan Giggs and the likes on the wings, where all they needed to do was just stand out wide, make the pitch wide, and be an outlet for a pass into a channel, or pick the ball up on the halfway line and run and dribble past 3 or 4. You have to be good defensively. You have to be good offensively. You have to have the ability to cut inside. You have to have the ability to play inverted. There's an argument to be said that they do need to be the most complete players, and it seems to be the area, like I said, where we've bought to develop rather than bought to perform. And I think some of that is seen by the fact that those wide positions have rotated probably more than anywhere else. So we've seen Traore, we've seen Talby, we've seen Adingra, we've seen some of I can't remember whether one of our strikers has gone out there as well. But it's definitely an area that we seem to be happy to rotate and happy to find, or to not find, should I say, like a nailed on starting wing pair on either wing. And that's fine. Like I said, it's a demanding role. The amount of ground that they need to cover, the amount of sprints that they need to do backwards and forwards. Premier League wingers, very rarely will play 38 games in a season because of that demand that's put on them. So it's good that we have options, and it's good that actually it's another, not quite to the extent of the centre halves or the centre midfielders, but by and large, the players that have come in there and have played there have grown into, as the season's kind of opened. You compare Talby from opening couple of games to his most recent performances, and it's chalk and cheese. So yeah, it's not surprising. It's not surprising, but it's one that is coming along nicely, and actually I'm intrigued to see just what Lebris thinks his best wing partnership, if you can call the wingers a partnership, seeing as they're on opposite sides of the pitch, but what he considers that to be.
Yeah. Well, just on that, he went one step further, Andrew, because Nick Barnes pushed him a little bit on the point, and he then made the statement, this part of the pitch needs development. And, going off, building off Bomber's point there, because I'm going back in the day, but I always, and when we're talking about relationships, I always see a winger and a fullback as being a partnership on that side, whether your fullback goes on the overlap or comes inside, or, you play it back to him and make you run over the top, or whatever. And I think that potentially one of, I think it might have been Brentford. I can't remember, trying to think which game it was, but Lefay seemed to be building up that partnership with Ronaldo. And that might have been something that the manager wanted to pin something on and say, right, well, we've got that. That's brilliant on one side. But I think injuries and suspensions have come in where not one player, right or left, has seemingly made that position their own. And because of that, none of them are getting a run in their side.
Yeah, I think a lot of the changes are beyond the management's control. You're dead right. Lefay out on the wide was getting a bit of an understanding along that left wing. But again, nice problem to have. Lefay's such a talented player that there's been times when it's more important that he's played in the middle, mainly through Diarra being unavailable. So there are things going against the Lebris that's stopping him having a more settled forward line. As Bomber says, though, you probably do see a bit more mix and match because of the roles now and the expectations of players. In a perfect world, Lebris wouldn't be making this many changes, I don't think. On a side note, Chris, can I just ask, was there anybody at this press conference you don't have contact details for? Because Andy Sixsmith, Keith Downey, Nick Barnes, you've spoken on this pod. Do you just feed them the questions and say, listen, I want to talk to the lads about this. Will you run it past the staff?
You will notice that I bring up the same three every week, Andrew, because I don't know anyone else.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I'm bummed just in the middle of the park because the question was raised about Siddiqui's potential, and Register Briggs gave his stock answer on these questions where he went, I don't know. He says that every time he's asked about a player's potential. But he was asked about Siddiqui. But in the middle of the park, I do think that Siddiqui was looking fantastic from the start of the season. But since Diarra's been injured and out of the picture, seemingly, I think there's been more emphasis placed on Siddiqui, that he's become more important role in that midfield, because it's trying to decide who is in there with him and Xhaka. Whereas obviously it was going to be them two plus Diarra. That was going to be our core three in the middle of the park. But now we're trying to find that solution to Diarra being missing. Siddiqui has stepped up, and he's probably, I mean, amazingly, he's probably done more running since Diarra was injured than he was doing before.
Yeah, and I think he's needed to, because between one thing that we saw throughout pre-season and throughout the start of the season until Diarra got injured was just the amount of energy and work rate that all three of them, Xhaka included, because I think just on a slight side, I'm sure I saw a stat yesterday that Xhaka has covered the most ground in the Premier League in terms of kilometres ran. So honourable mention for him there. But yeah, the energy that the two of those provided in the press, in being able to win the ball back, in being able to facilitate counter attacks, was a real strength for us, and there was a real concern. I remember I was on one of the preview pods, and we were talking about how much of a concern it was going to be to have Diarra, right? Because we all felt that Diarra was slightly above Siddiqui, just in terms of his development and just where he was at and what he was doing on the pitch. But you're right, Diarra's come out, and Siddiqui is now the person who's looked at to provide to support the press, and to organise and to hassle and to harry. And he's just picked up the reins without his new best mate in midfield. And it doesn't matter who's gone in there. I know it's predominantly been Rig, and he's done well as well. He's no Diarra at the minute. Let's make no bones about it. But the extra expectation and the extra responsibility that's fallen on Siddiqui's shoulders, he's just absorbed like a sponge, and it's not fazed him. And in fact, I would say he's probably outperforming his performances when he was with Diarra. So yeah, he's a special, both of them, but Siddiqui at the moment in particular has special talents. And you can tell already that he's got that kind of experienced head on his shoulders in terms of how to manage a game as well. And some of that might be down to Xhaka kind of barking orders at him. And maybe Granit Xhaka playing alongside him is making Siddiqui, the player that we're seeing. But yeah, his importance to the team when there was a potential that he was going to be missing when he didn't feature in that international break just gone. The prospect of not having both Siddiqui and Diarra in that centre midfield was a massive concern. I know I'll use the word options. We've got options, but and this isn't a disrespect to any of the players that we've got in there, but a midfield three of Dan Neil, Chris Rigg, and Granit Xhaka doesn't hold a candle to a midfield three of Siddiqui, Diarra, and Xhaka, and that's just fact at the moment. And Neil and Rigg have still got room to improve, but then so do the two boys who I've just mentioned, because they're young in themselves. It's not like they're all kind of Granit Xhaka's age in their 30s and have played so many senior games. They're going to develop too. But yeah, Siddiqui's been massive for us, and it was a really, really big sigh of relief from me to find out that he's made a recovery and that he's trained all week and that he'll likely be still in for the trip to Stamford Bridge this afternoon.
Yeah, and even the manager doesn't know how much potential Stiggy's got, as he keeps saying. We'll look at the strikers, Andrew, because the manager came out when he was asked about them and their performances. He said that's the most difficult position on the pitch, which I would take issue with because I was a centre half back in my day, and I'd never admit that. But he said he made the point about who's been playing, especially Wilson Isidore. He said he's happy with what he called the behaviour, which I guess is kind of the attitude in terms of defending from the front. But he says we need to improve the output, which I thought was quite interesting considering.
Yeah, because we're always talking, aren't we, about how goals need to be shared across the team. So to not single one area of the pitch out or one individual out, but kind of ask for more does seem a little bit of a surprise. Isidore, for me, I was really worried about going into the Premier League because he was always been a great goal scorer, but I thought that when things weren't going his way, it was almost a wasted shirt. He didn't always work the defenders, and defenders could maybe come off feeling as if they haven't been in a battle. That's not the case now. Isidore's doing all sorts of work off the ball and chasing down bad long balls and turning them into something. He does have that spark where he can turn a nothing chance into a good shot on goal. There was the offside effort against Wolves. There was also that really good bit of skill where he took down a long ball in front of the Roker end with just one touch, and then he played the ball across, and it was a bit of a cross shot. So I've been happy with Isidore's contribution. I don't know who you start with against Chelsea because there's arguments for all of those players. But I am a little bit surprised Lebris has said that. However, we've always got to remember these press conferences, they're not the managers aren't bothered really about talking to fans, are they? The messages they're making are to their players and to the changing room. So he might be saying something just to get a response from a certain player and just, I don't know, maybe the training's not being quite at it this week or something along those lines. And he thought, yeah, I'm just going to give people a little elbow there, just remind them not to let their standards slip.
Yeah, it was definitely a game of chess trying to get something out of Register Priest in these press conferences. But that's a good point. Just before the lads look into their crystal balls and tell us what the score is going to be, I think that's a good time to take a quick break. We'll be back after these.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels on everything from lamps to ceiling fans, even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes, now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast, and we'll get right into what the lads think about the game. But we'll start with Chelsea. Bomber, it was mentioned again, that, put to the manager about Chelsea, and he actually said they've got a similar identity in terms of bringing in young players and kind of trying to make I think they brought in 300 million on players in the summer, bringing in, I think you guys mentioned it at the beginning of the pod. But huge sides, finishing the top four last season. I mean, just straight off the bat, are we looking at this as a free hit?
I think we have to. There are certain games of the season that hang on, Chris. I'm going to caveat this because I know the last time I was on, I said that every game is a must win, and I know that that's going to come back and bite me in the arse. So with that said, there are certain games in the season that you kind of tacitly accept that you are unlikely to get something out of. You still must try and win them. So I will preface it with that. You still must try and win them. But there are games, you go to the Etihad, you go to the Emirates, you go to Stamford Bridge, you possibly even go to like Old Trafford and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, not expecting to win the game. So why not? Our season won't be defined, despite what I've said in the Wolves preview, by the away games at those top six, those Champions League, Europa League clubs. It'll be defined much more by the games that we play at home and by the games with the teams around us, home and away. So with that in mind, they are very much free hits. That said, you want to make sure that you're competitive in those games, and you want to make sure that you're not on the end of a 5-1 or a 7-2 drubbing, because there is a massive feel-good factor still around the club, even after the kind of the Man United result and performance, that first half-hour performance in particular. We've bounced back, we've beaten Wolves. Everything is going right and everything is positive around the club at the minute. I can't remember a time where I've felt so positive as a Sunderland fan. Albeit I've not had as long to go back as some of the other fans.
Thanks, Bomber.
Yeah, sorry, mate. But with that, what we don't want to do is go to Stamford Bridge and go, do you know what? It's a free hit. We'll just play the same way that we do at home. We'll go gung-ho. We'll try and outpress them and outplay them, and then end up on a heavy 5-0, 6-0 defeat, which could then kind of derail us a little bit in terms of that confidence. Like we said, every week we see this team getting more and more confident and feeling more and more at home in the Premier League. And what I don't want necessarily is for us to go in, all guns blazing, get completely rolled over, and then all of a sudden we start doubting ourselves, thinking, "Oh, do you know what? This is going to be tough. Do we actually have what it takes? Are we going to be competitive enough?" And I think it would speak more of us playing a certain way and being competitive in the game for as long as possible, and maybe even losing at 1 or 2-0, to show that we can compete with the big boys in the Premier League. Then going, do you know what? It's a free hit. let's just swing for the fences and getting turned over, because I think that could do more damage than good. I would like to see us have the same approach that we took to Old Trafford, albeit with a different result, obviously. But I think a lot of it will also depend on which Chelsea turns up and how many players they keep on the pitch. But yeah, I think it's a free hit of sorts, but I wouldn't want us to approach it with a gung-ho attitude that it is a free hit and the result doesn't matter. Because whilst the result might, in terms of win, loss, draw, might not matter in the grand scheme of things, the manner of a defeat, if we were to be defeated, I think is quite important.
Yeah. Well, we spoke to Simon Johnson, the Chelsea reporter from The Athletic, to preview the game, Andrew. And one of the points he made, Bomber's just touched on it, was talking about which Chelsea turns up. He said it's a really young Chelsea side. And as we know, I think it was the youngest starting 11 in the Premier League last weekend against Nottingham Forest. And considering how much money they've spent, you can imagine how much young talent is in that team. But he said it does mean that they are consistent, and there is this question mark about which Chelsea side turns up. And he said that because of that, Sunderland have got a chance.
I think they do have a chance. It's funny, we can afford to lose against Chelsea because our start has been that good. I take the point that Bomber makes about it's how you lose, and if you get a bit of a scudding, it could derail things. But yes, Chelsea have always, well, not always, but for a long time have seemed like that. I have in my mind that Saturday 3:00 at home, they'll often lose to somebody like Brighton or Brentford or Fulham. I mean, the stats might not actually pan out like that, but that's just an idea I have, that they do have this flaky side to them. And why not a Sunderland? Sunderland are not flaky. You can be fairly confident what you're going to get from a Sunderland team at the moment. So why not us? We can back ourselves and go for it. The red cards one is interesting. That does suggest that they are a bit erratic. I was reading before speaking to you two gents that Trey Hume's going to have family in the home end and the away end. Apparently, some of Trey Hume's family are big Chelsea supporters. But I wouldn't mind somebody like Trey Hume or if Ronaldo plays, somebody just working their ticket, maybe being a bit like cheeky, couple of sly comments. Can we rile them up? Can we get another Chelsea lad sent off? Have them maybe thinking more about retribution rather than concentrating on the game? Why not? Yeah. It's perfectly legitimate tactic. If they're daft enough to get themselves sent off all the time, let's see if we can make that happen again.
Yeah, it's a real strange one, Bomber, because I asked Simon Johnson that question, fully expecting him to come back with this answer of, oh, well, it's just been a coincidence, these players, it's just one of those patches where a few players get sent off. But he replied by saying, no, it's a really big problem for Chelsea, and it goes across last season as well and into this season. And I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, but the sending off against Nottingham Forest, I think they were 3-0 up at the time, and he absolutely smashed someone to get a second yellow card again in the last few minutes of the game. And he just said there's these things that are going on which are ridiculous. But do we reckon that, and it's funny because Register Bruce wasn't asked about it, but, knowing how kind of thorough he is with his research, surely he's looking into this as an angle we can maybe poke them on.
Oh, absolutely. And so we should, it is happening too often for Chelsea to go to finish a game with 10 men for it to be any sort of coincidence or bad fortune or poor refereeing. The Forest one was quite late in the game. I think it was Gusto, wasn't it? Yeah. But then, like you said, the game was already won. They were already 3-0 up, but then they had the one, I think it's 5 in 6 or 4 in 6 in the last 6 games. I think it is the actual stat. And yeah, there's definitely a temperamental side or a fragile side to them in terms of that aggression. I mean, they're still they're still doing okay. Let's be honest. They beat Benfica 1-0 with 10 men. I guess on the flip side of that, they did get a bit of a pasting from Brighton and lost to United as well. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think Chelsea have probably had for a fair few seasons now, in terms of like a bit of a reputation. I'm thinking back to like the Diego Costa days, where you knew that teams knew that they could do certain things that would rapidly increase the chances of Diego Costa getting a red card. And I think that has continued, but it's kind of spread a little bit like a virus across Chelsea. Because like I said, I can't think of another time where a club has got so many red cards in such a short space of time. And it's definitely something, like I said, such is our kind of analytical nature of our coaching team and the depth to which we seem to be preparing for each game. There is not a chance that somebody hasn't gone to Regis Lebris, or Regis Lebris himself has gone to the players and said, you know what, let's be resolute in defending. Let's be solid, but let's be a bit niggly. Let's try and get into them, because they will react. You can see that they'll react just by the one at Forest. Like you said, Gusto would, for no reason whatsoever, has flown in, got himself sent off. Game's won. There's 3 minutes to go, and he's still done that. You had Chalobah, I think it was, against Brighton. That was halfway through the second half. So yeah, I think it needs to be a tactic to adopt. Like I said, you want to go into every game giving yourself the best chance and giving yourself the opportunity to get something from it. And I genuinely think that at the moment, with Maresca himself being a bit of a hothead and getting himself sent to the stands, that kind of leaches out to the players. They are, the players are representations of their manager on the pitch, and if their manager is a fiery hothead who's getting himself into trouble, that will bleed out onto the pitch, and the players, the Chelsea players, will absorb that, and it's being shown in their current disciplinary statistics. So it's a tactic that we should, and I'm fairly certain that we will employ. Whether or not it works is another question entirely, but it's definitely something. It doesn't cost anything to put in an extra 10% into a tackle, or get into someone's ear and call them a few names, or try and rattle them a little bit. So yeah, I think it's definitely something we should adopt.
Do you know what this sounds like, lads? This sounds like a job for Luke O'Nien.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, come on. First game in the Premier League.
If we're 1-0 down or something, we need an extra man on the pitch. Get Luke O'Nien to get someone sent off. But another thing potentially to get them on, Andrew, and I've always had this feeling about Chelsea. It maybe stems back to the Mourinho days when they went on that unbeaten run at home. But I do get this feeling at Stamford Bridge when, like, they're slightly arrogant when they do play teams like Sunderland, and you saw that against Brighton when they got turned over 3-1. That there's this, Chelsea just need to turn up to beat some of these sides. And again, Sam Johnson, the Chelsea reporter, he said straight away that as soon as I said, can Sunderland frustrate them if it's 20 minutes, half an hour and still 0-0? He went, absolutely. He went, the crowd, said you'll feel it in the crowd. When there might be a few who were thinking, no, Sunderland aren't any pushovers and this is a tough one. But he said most will be expecting 3 points. And I do think, again, I think it's something the manager will be talking about and saying, let's frustrate this crowd.
Oh, of course. I mentioned a couple of the clubs there who I kind of, in my mind, seem to think have done okay there. Crystal Palace are another one. I think they might have got a decent result last season there. Don't anybody look these stats up, though, because I could be talking absolute rubbish.
Drew 0-0 on the opening day at Palace at Stamford Bridge.
There you go. See? There you go. You're right, though. There is this assumption that from a certain section of the support that we're just fodder and that Chelsea will roll us over. We need to be careful because against Manchester United, we conceded early, and that really scuppered our plans, I think. Because, yeah, if we keep Chelsea out for a while, there will be a bit of frustration around them. Chelsea, to me, are one of those sides who are better against the better teams. They did really well to beat Liverpool in the last minute. That was quite a exciting game, and the crowd were all up for it. The players were clearly bang on. Are they going to have that same approach for what they would consider as a bit of a routine, boring fixture? Oh, let's just get this ticked off. It is conceivable. And again, it goes with this inexperience we're talking about. And that's weird that we're talking about the opposition being the ones inexperienced. It's normally Sunderland who have got the youngest 11. So I'm not quite sure I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, if you've got players who are still learning the game and maybe they're being told not to be going in over the top, they might go too far the other way and just not get that balance right. I don't think we are going into this game this afternoon just parking the bus and seeing if we can fluke our way to a result. I think we can match Chelsea on a football basis and push them.
Yeah. Just last one before we get into the starting lineups, Bomber. Mark Guiu, this is a good test for whether we're past the typical Sunderland, I think, because back in the day, this sort of weird situation, it's like nailed on for Guiu to score, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew exactly what you were going to say as soon as you uttered the words typical Sunderland. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought. Yeah, so it's kind of like our final hoodoo, isn't it? Like in terms of we've broken so many hoodoos, our Wembley hoodoo. There's so many different ones that we've kind of abolished. This feels like the last one. I mean, I'm not really sure how much Guiu's been playing for Chelsea since he's been back. Because I think I read something somewhere that he was a bit frustrated that he was called back from Sunderland and hasn't really had any minutes.
He scored against Ajax in midweek.
Yeah, he did. Whether that means he'll be in the starting lineup today is one thing, but I mean, it would be typical Sunderland for him to not start, him to come on in the 85th minute and to score a winner rather than start and score early on. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because like he was our player for all of about 3 weeks, didn't make an appearance. Yeah, it's a strange one. I would like to think we're beyond that now, and this is a completely new Sunderland, and all the demons have been exorcised, and Barry Fry's come over and peed on all the corner flags to remove any hoodoos and and curses that are at the stadium alike. So I think I don't want to put it out. I'm going to put my neck out there. I don't think it'll happen. I think we're past that. I think this is a new Sunderland team, and I think those sorts of hoodoos don't exist anymore, because the new typical Sunderland is a hard-working, very impressive side that gets results when they don't expect it, not ones that have ex-players who haven't made appearances for the club come and ruin our day.
Yeah, I think that Barry Fry scenario is the Exorcist movie that should have been made, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Bomber, I'm glad you've taken the hit for that and said that the former striker curse is going to hit.
I've said more outlandish things, Andrew, so I'll take it. It's fine.
I think it's only right that Guiu plays a half for each team. I mean, surely that's how you get around this. Do you know there was a photo of him in the Wolves programme, and it took me a few minutes to work out who it was, because we've signed so many players over the summer. I've got no capacity left for players who've already left.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's going to be a quiz question in a few years' time, that's for sure. But yeah, let's go to starting 11, Andrew, because we've talked about his dilemma at the back, or the potential might just be obvious. I'll let you decide in a minute. But of course, he's got decisions to make in midfield, because you can put a question mark potentially over Riggs' performance and how much he's settling in the middle of the park. There's people been saying, does he maybe suit a few games playing out wide this season rather than being in the middle of the park in the Premier League? Traore came off a sub, looked absolutely knackered, I think, after about in that second half at the weekend. So how do you think he's going to shuffle his pack?
Well, for Traore, I might give him a bit of leeway because I'm assuming he was on international duty and did a lot of travelling prior to the Wolves game. Bless him, he wasn't at his best in that match, but he knows the Premier League.
He looked knackered in the second half.
Yeah, well, that's what made me think there. Maybe has he had a tough schedule? Because he's better than that. Whether he's going to be a long-term option for us or not is to be seen. But
former Chelsea player, of course.
Yes. Well, maybe Chelsea are panicking about the curse of a returning player. I'm struggling to try and second guess how the team's going to be. I've actually written out 2 options. I think we probably do stick with 4 at the back, because then you've got players playing in positions that they're comfortable with. I feel really harsh on Gertruda. We've got this quality player who so far has done really well, and I would like to see him get a couple of starts so we can really find out how much he can contribute. So there is a part of me thinks that we would go 5 at the back with Gertruda there. The benefit to that is, if needs be, if the game changes, you could push Gertruda into midfield if needs be. So there's part of me wants to do that, but I'm imagining it will be a back 4 of Hume, Michele, Ballard, and Ronaldo. Could be right, could be way off the mark with that. We'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. So just finish that off. So in midfield,
yes,
who do you think he's gone with?
Well, obviously, as well, we kind of take this for granted. Roof's in goal, because last year there used to be all sorts of conversations about who should be playing in nets for us. That is now just not something we have to think about. In midfield, I would go with Xhaka, Siddiqui, and Lefay. That stat Bomber mentioned earlier about Xhaka covering so much ground, that's phenomenal. And Xhaka on Saturday, this might sound like it doesn't make sense. He's that good, you don't even notice him. It was only after the match when I walking home and my mate sent us a message that you think, oh God, Xhaka played and he was brilliant. Because you just expect it now. It's not a surprise that he performs at such a high level that you just think, oh, well, that's that sorted. We'll not need to worry about Xhaka. So yeah, that would be my 3. Siddiqui, something against Wolves I thought I saw more of. His coverage of the pitch is great, but his footwork's brilliant as well. There was a couple of times he was kind of tricking his way out of tight spots. So I would like to see those 3 in midfield, and up front I would stick with Rig. I would have Isidore, and I'd bring Talby back. Talby for me is doing well and could do a job for us.
So you said Rig there. So where would you have Rig? Because you've got the 3 midfielders of Xhaka, Siddiqui, and Lefay in the middle.
Yeah. So I would have.
We're going to try it with 12.
Have I picked 12? Have I?
I think so. No, because you've gone with a midfield of Xhaka, Siddiqui, Lefay. You said in the middle.
Yes.
So who's in your wide positions?
Yeah, it would be Rig, Chris Rig.
Oh, you've gone Rig wide.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Chris Rig did that a few times last season when Roberts wasn't available. The benefit to that though is, again, if needs be, he can drop back. Because as well, we always talk about formations, but we have a very different formation when we're in attack and when we're defending without the ball. So Rig has that flexibility, and Talby on the left, I'd like to see what he can do, because as we've mentioned recently, Chris, on previous conversations, he's had a good start, and I think there's more to come from him.
Yeah, come on then, Bomber. Let's have your 11.
Yeah, so mine's not. Well, it's not dissimilar at all in terms of those back 5 positions, including the goalkeeper. I'm not suggesting we'll play a back 5. So it's Roofs. I think Ronaldo comes straight back in. I think if we didn't have the injury to Alderete, I'm not sure that he would, such as the performance of Mukiele and the entire back four against Wolves. I think if Alderete was in there, I think it's the exact same defensive five. But yeah, I think it's Ronaldo comes straight back in at left back. It's Mukiele, Ballard, and Hume, and then Roofs in goal. I think that midfield three stays the same as well. So similar to what Andrew said, it's Xhaka, Siddiqui, and Lefay. The only thing I'm not too sure of is the wide players. I think I'm not. I don't think I agree that we would see both Talby and Rigg occupying either wings. I think that's feels a little bit too light for me, particularly for the defensive work that they would have to do. I know Rigg puts himself about an awful lot, but now that I'm thinking about it on the hoof, I'm going to change my mind. Actually, I'm going to say Rigg, Siddiqui, and Xhaka in the centre midfield, and then Lefay on one of the wide positions, because Lefay's ability and work rate and defensive capabilities coming backwards is a real strength of his, and it's a real benefit to us. So I think Rigg can, particularly in a game where we're not going to be probably as offensive and have as many chances. I think Rigg can sit in that centre midfield and can do the defensive bits that Lefay could do. But I just think out wide, defensively, Lefay is a far superior option than Rigg or Talby out there.
Can I just say as well, Bomber, that he's likely to want to reunite Ronaldo and Lefay down that left, isn't he?
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to change your mind, and I'm going to say the back four and the goalkeeper stays the same. It's going to be we'll look at Xhaka, Siddiqui, and Rigg in that midfield. Lefay on the left, and I think Talby might well come back in on the right, because Traore got tired very quickly in that second half against Wolves and got really quite sloppy and almost cost us a couple of times. And he has come in for a bit of criticism. So I think similar to what Lebris did with Masuaku, taking him out the firing line, putting Talby back in, who didn't really deserve to come out of the team, to be fair, and then Isidore up front.
Yeah, and there is this slight dilemma about Talby, though, Bomber, that he has looked really good on the left, hasn't he?
Yeah. There is that. I don't think Adingra is going to go out onto the right, and I don't think Traore really should start the game ahead of him. But I can't get past what you've just brought to mind in that left hand side of Lefay and Ronaldo was pretty impressive for us. So I can't get past that. So I think Talby may well go out on that right, or it depends. It depends on what he's thinking. But that would be my 11 anyway. If the question's what I would play, that would be it. If the question's what Lebris would play, well, who bloody knows?
Yeah, well, I can say Andrew's smiling because he's just saying in his head, we've got options, so we can do that. But let's get into predictions, Andrew. How do you think the game will go, and kind of what's your prediction for the game? Do you think we're going to be under the cosh for most of it?
We'll not have possession. We'll not dominate possession, but we'll not be under the cosh in the sense of we're hacking it off the line and the keeper's having to fly here, there and everywhere. I would expect Chelsea to create some good chances, but I don't see us hanging in for dear life. I cannot see a draw. Either Chelsea win or Sunderland win, and I'm never in my life going to predict a Chelsea win or any victory against Sunderland. So, yeah. Let's go for it, lads. Let's beat Chelsea and let's stay up there. Like you say, it's a game which is like a clash of the two European hunters. Let's establish ourselves in that front pack, and I'll give us a 1-0 win today, I think.
Yeah. So Bomber taking a deep breath when you made that prediction. What are you thinking, Bomber?
I'm just thankful someone else has taken over my apparent happy clapping moniker now. Yeah, before I do that, it's just interesting, isn't it? Like how how long does this run and our performances have to continue before we consider ourselves to be a top half Premier League team that will compete rather than a team that's overachieving and overperforming and has a good chance of staying up? It's interesting, isn't it? Because we're all waiting for the bubble to burst, and it hasn't really yet. So there is a chance that we're actually, a top 8 Premier League side. We just don't know it.
But Bomber, I don't think that's ever going to go away, because that's the media narrative that they'll play out the whole season.
Yeah, and it's also the mindset of the Sunderland fan because of what we've been through collectively over the past 10 years. But yeah, so in terms of a prediction, Chelsea are strong at home. You look at their results. They've just smashed Ajax at the Bridge. They beat Liverpool at the Bridge, and you can make debates over which Liverpool that was, because they don't seem to be the Liverpool of last season, but it's still Liverpool and the same players. They've beaten Benfica whilst being down to 10 men. They had that blip against Brighton, but they were 1-0 up until they had that player sent off. And then obviously, I think Danny Welbeck happened basically. So yeah, I would not be as confident as predicting a win, but I will equally very, very rarely predict publicly in this forum a loss. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw and a Mark Guiu 89th minute equaliser.
For us.
Yeah, own goal. And then he takes his Chelsea top off, and he's got a Hummel one with red and white stripes on underneath, and then gets sent off.
Yeah, he's got a "I eat cheesy chips on Wembley" wear T-shirt on underneath, and shows it to the camera.
Yeah, I'll go 1-1, an optimistic 1-1, and I would be more than happy with that.
Okay, interesting. Well, I was pessimistic for the Wolves game. I said a goalless draw. So for this one, I'm going to do the same, because just purely because it worked last time. So I'm going to go for a very gallant and heroic 2-1 defeat, and I'm going to think we're going to put in a very, very good performance. But Chelsea are going to have a couple of moments. So let's go with that, and hopefully the same happens as happened last week. But that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Andrew. Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks for having us on.
And Bomber, always good to see you, mate.
Thank you, mate. And you. And good to speak to you as well, Andy.
And thanks again for everyone for listening. Don't forget, we'll have immediate reaction after the final whistle. I think that might be me and Andrew at the moment, as it stands. We're hoping to see if anyone else is available after the final whistle. So that should drop very soon after the final whistle. And yeah, so we'll have all the reaction on the Rugger Report website as well going into next week. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Find the biggest voices in sports on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like running commentary with me, Rob Deering, and me, Paul Tonkinson. We're comedians and runners who chat while we run about running and life. Search for Running Commentary, Run Compod, wherever you get your podcasts. Yes.
Sports Social Podcast Network.